Hi everybody, welcome back to Instagram Lives. I'm Alison Kent with the Home Kitchen, website for design, kitchen design. There she is. Kitchenwares and recipe blog, all that kind of good stuff. And today we're talking to Chef Robin Kort of SwallowTail. Hey, is she coming in? Did I do it right? It's been a while. Okay. There you are. I'm like, it's been a while since I pressed all these buttons. I don't remember what they all do.
Yeah, me.
We got you.
Yay.
SwallowTail for foraging online and in person.
Oh.
And secret suppers are back, I think.
They are. Yeah.
So we'll talk about that. And of course, you have all the food and recipes to go with all your foraging. So I want to talk about that too.
Cool.
But this is our our last season in our foraging series, fall, because we started last winter. Can you believe how long it's been?
I know. It's been a whirlwind year.
Well, and with the, I don't know, tail end of COVID, would you say? At the beginning of this year, I guess a lot of people were probably more likely to go out and look around what was happening in the forest and the mountains and oceans.
True. Yep.
And the oceans.
Yeah, but then fall hit and then everyone was all about mushrooms. So, yep.
I get most excited. Okay, we'll talk about what you find. I want to hear what you find, but I get most excited for...
Oh, you got some cauliflower mushrooms?
Cauliflower mushrooms. Now, I didn't find these. I bought them. But that's what I get most excited for. And I've seen foragers finding them on their Instagrams and stuff. But I love how it's just like an egg noodle.
Yeah.
And you just need a bit of bone broth. And I love it so much.
Yeah. It doesn't get mushy.
Nope.
I find it's like a gateway mushroom for people that don't like mushrooms. Because it's like texturally that's firm and it's like sort of floral in smell. You know, it's got such a beautiful, unique smell. Yeah. I mean, people find ones that are like the size of my head.
I think that's what I got. I got these at West Coast Wild Foods.
Oh, cool.
And yep. I didn't know what I was ordering. I'm like, well, I'll just get a pound or whatever. I wasn't quite sure what that was going to be, or maybe it's 2 or 3, but it came that big. And they're kind of a bugger to clean.
Yeah. I mean, bugs, whatever. They're
they're protein. And isn't that the base of all the protein powders anyways? Isn't it all bug?
Yeah, no.
Yep. We'll get there as a society, and then the foraging windows just open up for you with all the bugs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I mean, even, well, it's funny you mentioned the cauliflower mushroom. So I'm writing my coastal foraging cookbook right now, and my last recipe that I'm putting in is for cauliflower mushrooms, just like in a dashi broth. So like in a beautiful kelp broth, and just, you know, sliced so it looks like, you know, it's got that beautiful shape that you can, if you cut it thin, you can kind of, it looks like a world map almost, or like a root structure, you know, like it's a beautiful shape. But yeah, so I've been doing recipe tests for that. And I have another thing that's coming up. So in January for my Coastal Foraging Cookbook, I'm doing an Underground Supper Club series. So 3 nights of me cooking 5 or 6 courses. I'm not sure which, but yeah, and that'll include some like truffles and some garlic crab and oysters and like all the beautiful things that the sea has to offer in winter, right?
I'm absolutely free that day.
Yes.
All those days. I'm free on all those days.
Good. That's great.
I have to convince, so I think we talked about it in the last foraging one for summer, that had so much fun foraging with you and going for the sea urchins and all the little sea creatures and stuff, which was amazing. I'm hoping though that we can come back and do some more when my son's free, because I don't want to get in the water.
Yeah, you need a swimmer to get together.
You need a swimmer to go get the sea creatures. And I'm like, it looked cold, and I was happy to leave that to you and him, and you guys seem to have a great time doing it. But when he works all the weekends, it's so hard to find a day here and there, but we'll definitely find one and do that again, because apparently now is the time, right?
Now's the time. Yeah, I'm going to be going out to Galliano to do some harvesting this coming week. So, and right now it's like I'm getting nori, and one of the recipes actually that's really fun that I'm playing with is making nori nests. So you take the nori and you can kind of wrap it around a shape. So I wrap it around like pine cones and then smoke them. So, and they'll freeze into that shape and be like crispy and look like little nests. And then you can put like seafood in. You can like sear some tuna. You can put uni, you know, a lovely uni roe in them, and they're just like crispy and smoky and like umami that the nori has is really, really nice. So that's going to be in the supper club coming up in January. So you can try it. Then you have to forage it yourself.
I will definitely be there for that. I miss the secret suppers, and that's how we originally heard about you. Was somebody said, "Oh, you love food so much, you have to come with us to the secret supper," and it just sounded so like, "Ooh, we're going to a secret supper." And I didn't even know until just this last year that was your house and it was your event, and because how did we reconnect? Oh, I sent my son and my husband on one of your
sea foraging
for crabs and clams and stuff. So
yeah, cool. Yeah. That's the thing is, so we're having our first one. We had a private one just last week, and then I'm with Bruno Feldson from the Great Canadian Bake Off, the judge.
Yeah,
he cooked and made a lovely meal for them. But this week we're doing hunt and gather. So there's a local hunter and chef, Jody Peck, who is amazing, and I'm collaborating with a dinner for her. So that's the first one that I'm actually cooking for. So that's exciting. That's sold out, so that's great.
And I think I'm out of town. I was looking at it and looking at the date, but I'm going to chase the sun for a week.
Oh, that is worth it. Because it's crazy, isn't it?
It's insane today, yeah. And what does all this rainfall do for the foraging in the forest and stuff?
The mushroom tours that we're running are like, they're pretty wet, but people are excited, right? Like, because it's you're trapped in your house all day because you're looking at it, and there's no incentive to go out. But with mushroom foraging, it's like it forces you out because you're like curious, right?
Yeah.
So you put on your rain gear or whatever, or you grab your umbrella. Like, people are coming with their little umbrellas in tennis shoes out into the woods. Like, it's so funny. But yeah, then you can find chanterelles, and you can find your beautiful cauliflower mushrooms and your late season harvest. So matsutake are still out there, soggy chanterelles, and some we might get a second flush even, like if the weather stays mild. So there's lots of little mushrooms that are popping up there, and then of course into sea foraging and stuff like that. But right now with the rain, it's like, it's a really fun thing to do. Just go out and like brave it, and then go home and have a nice hot bath.
And a nice hot mushroom soup.
Yeah, exactly.
Are mushrooms like the biggest thing you're finding right now? Is that the big catch for fall? That's the big forage?
Yeah, definitely mushrooms. So, and within the mushroom group, right now as well, hedgehogs are a late season mushroom, fall oyster mushrooms, winter chanterelles. So it's like each, mushroom foraging season starts early, probably August, September, November, October, and then tapers off towards December, right? And you'll have different species coming up at different times. So, people always ask me when they're coming on a tour, it's like, oh, in November, are you going to find anything, sort of thing, right? Yes, you find different things, right?
Yeah.
So early in the season is your porcinis and your sort of more porous, mushrooms that kind of come quickly and then disappear as soon as the rain come, and they absorb all the moisture and then decompose, basically. But yeah, so there's lots of stuff to see out there right now, and it's it's supposed to be sunny this week, theoretically.
Yeah, we're gonna believe that when we see it. But I think, as we've shown too throughout this, our fourth season in this series, is that there's always something to find.
There is.
Like, you go on a walk any time of year, and there is something you will find that is edible, absolutely, in the forest. I'm still checking out things in my yard.
What you got? Oh, rose hips. Cool.
But I'm not sure. They're supposed to get more color, right? Do you think?
Yeah, they should be more red when you harvest them. Yep.
So I just have to be careful because it's right out my window, so I can see the tree every day, and then I just have to watch for when they get the right color. But before they go to like this kind of, before they get brown.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, when they get brown and stuff like that, as long as they're not rotten, you can use them for tea. So they're just like, you know, a little bit like dried apples, right? They're associated apples, so.
And you just do them whole for tea, right?
Yep, exactly.
Because inside, those are a pain in the butt to take out of there.
Yes, they are completely. And
they're actually like quite hard, and
yeah,
like,
and they cause like allergic reactions for some people because they have like a bristly sort of, you know, they can get caught in your throat.
Hard to see, but there's like tiny little hairs in there that apparently are like an itching powder.
Yeah,
it'll make you really itchy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Coral mushrooms out there right now, says somebody.
Yep.
Oh, Cassandra's asking if these will still ripen now that I've cooked them, or now that I've cut them.
I mean, they're apple related, so it's better to ripen them on the tree. But they should ripen a little bit. Throw a banana in, see if it works.
Oh.
But yeah, the coral mushrooms, they're just beautiful out there. There's the yellow form, and then there's pink. There's lots of different species and genuses of coral mushrooms. They're mushrooms that grow from the ground, and they look like little fingers or little branching sort of structures, and they can be quite colorful. And the cool thing about them is that they last throughout the season, right? Because they're very firm. So sort of like coral mushrooms. Coral mushrooms could be lumped into that, or sorry, cauliflower mushrooms. Cauliflower mushrooms could be lumped into that coral group, and those are the tastier. Like the other one that you might find out there are bear's tooth. So they're Hericium genus, and they look like little icicles that are dripping down. So those are
pretty. People have been taking photos of those lately. They're so pretty. I definitely have to get out there. Cassandra, what are they left on the tree at their time of year? Yeah, they should be left in the rose bush. I just cut these to show. I wanted to see what they tasted like too. Like, I was just very curious. Apparently you can eat them raw.
Yeah, you can. They're apple related. They're
high in vitamin C and all this good stuff. So yeah, these still, I wasn't sure how much color they get. Do all rose hips turn red?
Yeah, they should
before they die. Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure, like maybe this particular, because it's a pink rose, maybe those rose hips don't go red, but if all rose hips go red, then I know what to look for.
They totally should. Like,
okay.
That's the thing with like urban environments, is that there's so many introduced like non-native species that you can never say never. But, you know, and that's why my specialty is like native, you know, local plants, because those are like, you know, you can actually, there's a track record for them.
Yeah, well, I'll be watching them this year, and then next year I'll do better at harvesting them and getting them out of the yard. And then I definitely have still a lot of, and they're getting like little buds on them.
Oh, cool. Yeah, beautiful.
But the bay leaf is doing really well out there, so I feel like I'll have that for a while to come. And I just sometimes bring in a few branches and let it dry inside for a bit.
Well, and you know, at fall this time of year, just looking at how green that is, like, you know, we're getting a second flush of like nettles. Like, you can harvest stinging nettles right now. Sorrel, like a lot of wild greens are coming back. Even I've seen like dandelion flowers out. So, you know, it's mild enough, and the rain is sort of like giving you that second bit of growth. And whenever you see like bright new growth, like that's what you should be eating. That's where the energy of the plant is, where it's looking, right? So it's going to be the tastiest, and it's also going to have a lot of nutritional value. You know, and the other thing I've been experimenting with this fall is sea foraging things that we don't tend to think about as edible, like sea hats. So limpets, do you know, little cone,
tiny little
triangles that attach to rocks. So I've made a sea hat ceviche, and it was so delicious. Like, you would not believe how delicious. So yes, totally. There's a long sort of history around the world of eating those raw. So that it was.
And are you finding bigger ones, or are you talking about the ones that are like?
Yeah. Big? So they, like, I don't know, have you like as big as my thumb sort of thing? Like, that's the meat that's coming out of them. So it's like, it's a labor of love for sure. You're like, you know, going down and like, and you have to be, you know, sure of your water quality. So for example, my place on Galiano has very good water quality.
Yeah.
But they're really, really tasty. And like sea snails as well. So smoking those and making a dashi stock of those, or using them like an anchovy paste substitute. So smoking them and then using the meat for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like fun stuff to experiment with in fall when our waters are so clean and clear, and it's the best time for oysters, right? Mussels. This is the time we should be eating shellfish. So,
Yes.
fall going into winter for sure.
Yeah. Because winter here really kind of starts around January.
Yeah.
Like December is still quite warm most of the time. It's not freezing.
Yeah.
It rarely has snowed or anything. Usually January it starts getting like, oh, now it's winter.
Yeah.
For a
Exactly.
month, and then it goes into flowers. And then everything starts blooming again a month later.
Yeah. Yeah. As soon as the mushrooms hide, then I feel like it's winter. All the mushrooms are gone, then winter.
Then you know.
Yeah.
Then you know.
Yeah.
Definitely want to get in on a mushroom foraging if we can get there this year, but if not, definitely next year, because it just sounds like such a nice way to go for a walk around the forest and get some food while you're at it.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, anyone that's interested in those, it's the swallowtail.ca website, so you can check tickets. They're all sold out this year, but private groups are possible. So I should take you guys out next year. We haven't done the mushroom thing yet.
I know, we haven't.
What?
And that was definitely on my list. I don't know where
You went away.
I don't know where this year is going right now, because it was like we're doing all the birthday celebrations at the beginning of September, and then I was traveling for a couple months, and then I've traveled another few times since then, so I just haven't like been here.
Yeah.
But now, well, no, now I'm traveling again. Next week I will be here.
When the mushrooms are gone. Yeah.
When the mushrooms are gone. And that's what I was trying to figure out. I think we had a few emails go back and forth. It's like, oh, I really want to head out, but I really wanted to head out with Taylor and bring him along for the foraging, but then he's just working so much. So
yeah,
we'll figure it out. But do you have like your favorite spots you kind of go to, and you know they're like, do mushrooms go to the same places often every year, or it's like you're gonna find something new on that tree every year, or that tree always grows a cauliflower mushroom? Or
yeah, so mushrooms tend to be creatures of habit, so you can see things coming up, and for the longest time I ran tours in specific locations. So Lower Seymour Conservation Reserve at Rice Lake Gate, I was there for almost a decade teaching, and it was really cool to go back and see like certain years, you would find certain types of mushrooms and then they'd be gone for a few years and then they come back, so fungi are these like mysterious little things that we know surprisingly little about. But certain mushrooms like chanterelles, for example, have symbiotic relationships with specific trees. So if you look for Douglas fir trees, for example, you might find chanterelles. So there's a sort of a consistency with that. Also, they're looking for certain levels of elevation and moisture content to fruit. So there's lots of, like, there are 10,000 species of fungi in British Columbia. There are tons. So
just in BC.
Just in BC. So like there's, there are mushrooms that haven't been identified out there. Right. So it's a deep, deep knowledge.
Don't eat ones you can't identify. That much I do know.
Yeah. Yeah. When in doubt, throw it out.
When in doubt, for sure. And so secret suppers have obviously been on hold since COVID and everything happened, but now they are back.
Yes. And the thing is, I compiled I did so much recipe research in that time. So, it was kind of amazing to have this.
It worked out.
Yeah, exactly.
Good timing.
So
what can people expect? There's a comment about strawberry tree fruit.
Yeah, I was just gonna say strawberry tree fruit, and you're talking about arbutus. And I know it's not exactly the same thing, but the arbutus trees that are along the coast, I have been doing a lot of recipe testing with those. So you can eat the bark, and you can eat the berries. And the berries I've been pickling, so they're quite cool. They're bright red and very beautiful. And the tea, so the bark, I don't usually harvest from the actual tree. I look for bark that's fallen, just so you're harvesting sustainably. And so I'll harvest that, and I've been fermenting it. So there's like, one of my favorite recipes from Myanmar is fermented tea leaf salad. So I take that arbutus bark and I ferment it in a bit of fish sauce and lime and chilies. And just over 3 days, it like makes this beautiful sort of almost like a, yeah, marinade. And then you can like, you know, dice that up and marinate halibut in it, or, you know, any fish really. So yeah.
I'm on the fermenting boat this year. I've been doing, I'm just airing out this bag now.
What are you doing? Blueberries?
So this one's fermented blueberries.
Cool. Wow. Neat.
And they are delicious, but apparently they give off a lot of juice too, which you can kind of see in here.
Yeah, totally. So what do you do with it? Are you making drinks? Or you?
So apparently the blueberry juice is amazing for cocktails. You can make a syrup that is a little more savory. It's not overly sweet. And the blueberries actually, in my second ferment, my kombucha, I had put blackberries in it. So I took the blackberries out of the kombucha that were already kind of, kombucha is fermenting. So they were a little bit fermenty, kind of sour, and then I mixed them with a bunch of the blueberries and I made a compote to go on top of a olive oil cake. So it gave it kind of a bit of a kick without being overly sugary and sweet. I thought it was delicious. But I really like playing with those flavors because I can take something like fruit, which I'm not a big fan of. I don't like sweet things. And I can ferment it and make it into something that I do like, which is more on the sour kind of funky side. So
Interesting.
I'm loving it. And I did recently, so I'm getting some of these recipes out of the Noma book because they have a big fermenting book. I did tomato, the little cherry tomatoes halves, and it made an incredible fermented tomato water.
Yum.
Which is good for anything, really.
Yeah.
We were like just drinking it. We were sipping it and going, But if you make a lot of, I don't know, like a tomato salad, especially, you know, in the fall, it's still nice with some croutons and make it more kind of hearty. And then to add some of the fermented tomato water.
Yep. Totally.
Oh, it's good.
And that, just speaking of tomatoes, just for people that have green tomatoes, because now it's, you know, they might have some still left over or whatever. Yeah, it's one of my favorite things to work with is green tomatoes for fermentation or for like chopping up into salads or using them like a tomatillo to make salsa and stuff. Or, you know, you could fried green tomatoes is like one of the things as well. But did you do any tomatoes this year in your garden?
Well, my garden kind of suffered because mid-August, I just wasn't paying any more attention. And then I was gone for a month. And so by the time I got back, like mid-October, late October, I got back. And then I was sick for a week or two, just with like a sinus cold. And so by the time I finally arose again, everything was just dead.
Oh,
so all the gardening that I spent like all spring doing is just like, oh, done. We're over it. But I did, like, the last few years, I will get the green tomatoes before the garden's just done.
Yep.
And I really like dehydrated tomatoes.
Oh, cool.
So slicing them pretty thin. And I feel like the green tomatoes would take really well to dehydrating because they don't have as much moisture in them, right?
True. Yeah, totally. And then
so they won't like
green
disappear. They'll still have a little bit of crunch. I just find like dehydrating really pronounces the flavor of the tomato.
Yeah. And that's one of my favorite things, just like, you know, dried tomatoes for sauces and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I have to get used to, like, I try not to buy tomatoes in fall and winter because they're zombie tomatoes at that point. They're not real tomatoes, guys. Yeah. Like they're hothouse stuff that comes out. It's like, just stop, you know, like that's one thing that I think should be seasonal, you know, like it should be summer, and then like freeze a bunch, you know.
I've done that before too when I had a really good garden harvest and the tomatoes went crazy and I couldn't get to them all. I just froze them. Yeah. And then for the next couple months, I was just like, well, I'll take them out of the freezer, but they're still my tomatoes that I grew and they were still in season
and tasty, so good.
Tasty.
And the nice thing about freezing as well is that, like, a lot of people can, and they, like, you know, they'll boil the water and they strip all the skin off the tomato. But with freezing, you don't have to do that. It just, like, you can de-skin it so easily after it's frozen, right? So,
yeah. Like I'm feeling that pain because I just skinned, like, 50 little cherry tomatoes last night for dinner.
Holy shit.
It takes forever. So he's asking truffle seaweed in the Pacific Northwest, or is it an East Coast thing?
I've never heard of truffle seaweed. Do you know?
I haven't either. I feel like I'm going to have to go Google that after.
Cinnamon cap. I don't know cinnamon cap. Do you mean candy caps? Are they a red mushroom? Anyway, I'll wait for the response. Truffle seaweed. Do you mean dulse? Maybe you mean dulse. I'm not sure. But I mean, again, mushrooms and seaweed are something we have here and in like plenitude, thousands and thousands of species. My favorite seaweeds to eat are sea lettuce, rockweed, and bull kelp, and then nori, of course. So the four, I should say, of my favorites, and that they're pretty easy to identify. And harvesting them from clean water is great. I will say for sustainability, you want to make sure, especially with bull kelp, you can't pull it up from the seafloor. You have to snip. Just give it a haircut, basically. So take the blades and give it a haircut.
And that's year round, right? You can find seaweed all year long?
Yeah, and some are better in winter, but some are annual. So bull kelp actually does die off and then comes back, but it grows like a foot a day. So it is a fast growing seaweed, and it's delicious. It's one of my favorites. But yeah, some things will die off and come back, but we definitely have winter seaweeds. We have like a local kombu that's really delicious and gives like a nice body and again that umami to your soups and your stocks and stuff. But yeah, so there's tons and tons of different seaweeds out there.
And I'm almost out of uni butter, which is what I came back and did with all the last bits and then all the juice that came out of them while I was getting back home.
Yeah.
And I made a ton of uni butter and I'm starting to run out, but it's amazing. Just put a little dab of it on top of fish that you just cooked while it's still hot.
So delicious.
Melts in there. So good.
It's like, yeah, delicious, completely delicious. And yeah, like, so I'm going to be going out and doing, because I'm out of uni butter as well. So I have to go do a harvest.
That's the trigger. It's like, we're out of uni butter. We need more uni butter. Let's go.
Yeah, you got to get your son out into I said, there's a spot that I can, take you to, right?
Is it still a 45-minute hike, though? That's what I need to know.
It totally is. It completely is. Just send your son in.
You go, honey. I'm good.
Yeah.
I'll wait out here. No, I survived the hike. I was in great shape after this holiday, and now I've been sitting around again. Before we hang up for today, I want to talk about your book that's coming up, because I am so excited for it. And you can find things like rose hips and stuff in your backyard or stuff while you're walking, but then what do you do with it is the big question. So, and I remember seeing that you were pickling bull kelp.
Yeah, and sea asparagus, and it's actually, the book has been really fun to create. It's got over 50 recipes, and it's sort of like, it's not an identification book, it's coastal foraging cookbook. So it's just like, this is the ingredient, and this is what you do with it, right? Because that's exactly right. You get the ingredient home, and you're kind of like, for example, with porcini, right? If you harvest your first porcini, let's say, in September, you pick it and you're like, oh, amazing. You go home and you throw some butter into the pan and you slice it up and you fry it in the pan. And the porcini, this beautiful porcini, turns into like a slimy slug-like mass because you don't know how to cook it, right? Like mature porcini should be, grilled or fried on high in a dry pan sort of thing so that it keeps its texture. So it's just sort of like, through my life of foraging and cooking, it's sort of passing those like secrets on to people. And yeah, it is I do anything from like black huckleberry cakes, so lots of desserts and stuff, definitely seafood focused, lots of mushroom recipes, because it's the coastal foraging cookbook. I'm going to make other cookbooks that are like more meat focused, but this one is definitely leaning to seafood. So your pescatarian friends. And I do have a small mini cookbook that I'm going to release as a digital copy for Christmas. Okay. So people can check out the SwallowTail website or email me if they want access to that little cookbook.
And is it downloadable then?
It is. Yep.
Yeah. Excellent. So there's a Christmas tidbit, and then the book. Do you have a date for the book to come out, or?
I don't yet. I don't. It is almost done, But I don't think I'm going to have it out for Christmas. So it's probably going to be February, I would say.
Okay, spring treat.
Yep, totally.
But keep foraging, and definitely everybody should be checking out your website, because that's where you can find the foraging courses, which I signed up for the big one, I think it was.
Yeah.
All the things foraging
Yep.
course online, and the in-person foraging trips that you can go on to, the foraging tours that I think are both in Vancouver and on Galliano.
Yep, and
both.
I mean, the easiest way to find out about those is the SwallowTail members list. So if you go to my website and you sign up, you get very few emails, but just saying when events are happening on Galliano or here for mushroom foraging, sea foraging, wild plant workshops, medicinal plant workshops, online courses, everything foraging and eating, as well as the events. So the pop-up events with different chefs from around the city. That's my Underground Supper Club. That the only way you're going to find out about those is on the SwallowTail members list. So come.
And it's a good list because you often include a recipe or like an extra tip or whatever. Like, you're still learning a lot from your newsletter. Like, it's still one of my favorite things to get. It's one of the few I haven't unfollowed. Because you get so many these days, but that one I'm never unfollowing ever. And I keep them in a little folder so I can go back and be like, I remember Robin said something about cauliflower mushrooms. And then I'll go back through all your member list emails, be like, there it was. And there's a helpful tip or a recipe or something almost always there, which I love.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again, Fall Foraging. So hope to see everybody out in the forest. I will get myself out in the forest on a less rainy day.
Tomorrow. Yep.
Tomorrow, when it's sunny. I'm a fair weather forager.
Yeah. Well, me too.
And I'm going to be experimenting with my rose hips in the meantime, if I can get them going.
Cool.
And we'll be looking forward to your suppers and book.
Thank you very much. It's lovely.
Thank you.
Me too. Bye, guys.